Hey everybody, how you doing? Dash and Dave here again. Friday, January 7th, 2022. Alright. As you know, the past 2 months I've been doing the UPS peak season PVD gig. I focused 100% on that and did not do any door dashing at all for 2 months. As you know, one of the criteria to being a top dasher is having 100 deliveries the prior month before being rewarded the status of top dasher. I have completed 0 deliveries in the last 2 months. Here are my current ratings as we kick off 2022. Not going to read them all off to you, but as you can see, I am well within the criteria to be a top dasher, with the exception that I have not completed 100 deliveries in the prior month. I'm implementing major changes into my DoorDash order acceptance strategy. So let's take a look at the numbers for October when I was implementing the previous strategy. And that strategy was not taking anything less than $1 per mile on the orders that I accepted. I've recently developed and fleshed out and finalized a spreadsheet that I can use across any gig delivery platform. Right now, you know, with me, that's just DoorDash and Roadie. The main difference from the previous spreadsheets is I've adopted a calculator over here on the right that I kind of picked up and customized for my own use here on a spreadsheet from Mr. Moore over at Moore Financial. He does a lot of DoorDash stuff, you know. So it has deductions for my gas usage, taxes, vehicle expenses. And when it comes down to the final hourly pay after all deductions and expenses, you know, you can see it right there, $10.49 an hour. That's pretty sad. But you know, in any paying gig, whether it's a W-2 job or not, you know, that hourly wage after all your deductions can be quite shocking. For example, if you were a production worker somewhere and you were making $17 an hour and you had 20% of your pay deducted for, you know, taxes, Social Security, and maybe even a health insurance program, you're only bringing home $13.60 an hour. You know, nobody in a W-2 job looks at their pay per hour that way. However, us gig drivers, everybody with spittle flying from their lips go, you know, but you're not making that much, you have expenses, gas, wear and tear, yeah! You know, do it to yourself sometime. It's rather dramatic. So anyway, but still, $10.49, way too low. Now, if we come over to this column here, this is my dollars per mile average for the day. You can see here that only one time I was under that dollar per mile average at 96 cents. Otherwise, you know, I'm at 158, 141, 136. So it was down to 112, 154. You know, so it's kind of floating between 130 and 150 average, if you will. So once again, in my market, Central Iowa, you know, with our cost of living here, compared to some of the guys on the coast and the major metropolitan areas, pretty cheap living here, and then the pay is, you know, of course, kind of reflected on that. So a lot of the lunch orders, you know, they're $4, $5, $7, sometimes you see 8 and 10s. So my strategy has been, you know, in the past, you know, to get to top dasher status, take just about everything that was at least over that $1 per mile average. Overall, the gross at $19.29 isn't that bad, but man, I was running some serious daily mileage. 113, 110, 105, you know, 90, 80s. You know, that mileage cost, the gasoline cost, was tearing into my gross, you know, just terribly. It was too much. So I'm making wholesale changes, adjusting the parameters. Number one, the mileage thing I was just talking about. I want to try to cut down the mileage. Now, Ames, Iowa is a pretty compact town. It's roughly 25 square miles and almost kind of a perfect square. The thing is where the restaurants are located. And as I mentioned before, we have Duff Avenue, South Duff Avenue, which is Restaurant Row. That's where they're just all packed in on top of each other. There's a good amount of stores out in Campus Town where the college is, and then on the west side there's not that much, only about 2 or 3, a McDonald's, a couple Asian restaurants, and a Hy-Vee out there, but I haven't been getting any Hy-Vee deliveries. I've been getting a lot of shopping deliveries, which I don't do, but haven't been doing actual grocery deliveries from Hy-Vee. So anyway, the west side is a little thin, however it has a very high concentration of apartment complexes out there, and a lot of kids and a lot of people like Chipotle, well, they're 5 miles away on the east end of town. So strategy change number one is try to cut down on the mileage, which in my case, I'm going to try not to run to West Ames as much as I had. It's got to be a really great order to get me out to West Ames, because if I don't pick up anything out there that brings me back to East Ames, I'm driving back to East Ames free. The second major change is I'm going to double my minimum dollar per mile metric, jumping from $1 to $2 per mile. Now we saw on the averages there that I was, up around 158. I was as low as, 114. So overall, my average was, like I said, $1.34 to $1.50. So I'm really only going to try to implement the change of a 25% increase when you look at my actual averages that I had with my dollar per mile metric. So, the dollar per mile metric, I'd see an order that was $2.50 per mile. Of course I took it. So anyway, gonna weed out the dollar per miles, bring it up some. So I'm gonna be kind of cherry picking here. I'm gonna call it cherry picking light. Now I want to kind of just pause here for a second and tell you that the number one rule that I have in this new strategy is there are no rules. You've got to learn to roll with the punches and roll with the changes. That doesn't mean I'm going to reject every order that does not have a minimum of $2 per mile. If there's a $15 order that takes me 9 miles away, I may take that just to get the $15 revenue. So much of any strategy with Doordash is learning your market and knowing how to work your market and then change it up when it changes it up on you. There's busy times, slow times, yada, yada, yada. You got to learn your market. You got to learn how to play it and be prepared to make an audible call and change things up when they're needed. So as an example, let's say I get an order offer up for Panera Bread. It's a $4 order and the mileage is 2.5 miles. Okay, so we're missing $1 on my $2 per mile strategy. Well, if it's a little bit of a slower period of time, I may take that just to gain the revenue, because I know that my Panera Bread, I walk in there and I pick up the order. They're ready, they're done, they've got people dedicated to these orders for us DoorDash and delivery guys. I walk in, I grab, and I go. It's literally a minute or two. So I can make that quick $4 run and know that I'm back up for offers in about 10 minutes or so. On the reverse side, it's busier than hell. It's high noon. The orders are cranking in. I get an order from the Wendy's, which is only open in the drive-thru and has a 1/4 mile long line. I don't care if that order pays $3 per mile. I'm declining it. Minimum wait at Wendy's in the drive-thru during a heavy time is 10 or 15 minutes, period. I'm just not going to wait that time and waste that time on an order that, is going to take up too much of my time. Now, I just want to clarify, the people that work the Wendy's in Ames, they're great people. They're working with 2 hands tied behind their back. I don't know the entire reason, and it doesn't matter. We can probably guess that that's starting pay. Anyway, they just have a hell of a time getting workers in there and then retaining them. Their dining room has not been open all of 2021 because of staffing issues. Chick-fil-A and Chipotle joined Panera Bread to share the top spot of the 3 top restaurants that I want to deliver from. All 3 of these, you walk in, the order is there, it's done, it's on a shelf, you grab and you go. The 2 McDonald's in town are a very close second. Usually when you walk in there, their order is ready for you to go. The one on East Ames has suffered from some staffing issues, but they want us dashers and delivery guys to come up and bang on the window when the lobby's closed instead of forcing us to go through the drive-thru, which could be a 10 or 15 minute wait. Like I said, they've usually got our orders prepared for us when we arrive. So you go up, bang on the window, hold up your phone, they grab the bag and bring it on out to you. Thanks guys for changing it up and keeping us guys in mind. Panda Express in town has suffered from the same staffing shortages, but again, they want you to come up, bang on the window, hold up your phone, they'll grab the order and bring it on out to you. Again, thanks guys. We have 5 Subways in this town. They're usually pretty quick too. Usually it's on the shelf already made. We have a Pancheros Mexican fast food joint here in town. They're infamous for their huge burritos. Pancheros has some pretty good pay attached with their orders. However, due to the logistics, all of their burritos are made right in front of you. It's, pure on demand, pure custom work. And so therefore, Pancheros can be somewhat of a long line. It can take a little while to get your order. So it depends on the order size and the mileage and all that I kind of calculate my time involved in that. I may or may not take a Pancheros order, even if it's a spectacular $1 per mile, because I know it's going to be a time consumer. So here are the results of the first 3 days, almost 17 hours since I implemented the new strategy. Not a very large sample size, but we are seeing improvement. Looking at the miles driven column, 27, 46, 67, 60. Now, I have been doing some roadie in the morning, but then when we shift over to the dollar per mile column, you see 264, 180, 163, 171. The strategy of shortening up my mileage and looking and being more picky on the orders that I accept, I think is playing out rather well. My acceptance rate has plummeted to 34%. I declined 10 in a row the other day and got put in sit down, timeout, pause. I just had to resume dash. It was a press of a button, no big deal. But I'd never hit that metric before. 10 in a row, decline. My dollar per mile average for all the jobs and all the days was 183. I think that's rather spectacular compared to what I had prior. My day dollar average was $121.95. The average job rate up to $6.65. So you look at the gross pay minus the taxes, the gas, and the vehicle expenses. My final net, $248.21. I had 16.92 hours. That came out to $14.67 after all of my expenses. Quite the increase, wouldn't you say? But we're going to have to put a huge asterisk on this because, as I've mentioned before, it's winter break right now, and quite a few college students are not here. They all went home for the holidays. They'll be coming back into town in the next 5 or 7 days here. Am I going to be able to make this work when they come back and we have a lot of dasher competition? I've seen a scenario play out under this new strategy, and that is I will see a few more stacked or double orders. And I've seen these from the ones that I have rejected. Nobody took them, so the base pay was bumped up just a little bit. The tip probably remained the same from the customer, but the base pay came up 25 or 50 cents and then was stacked with another order that was literally around the corner from the first delivery, and that made that gig all worth the mileage rate and my time. So I want to wrap this up. The video is getting a little bit longer than I anticipated here. Number one rule, learn your market. Play the game that your market will allow you to play and beat it. Use it to your advantage. That being said, have I given up Top Dasher status for good? Only time will tell. Now, like I've said before, one of the major benefits that I feel that Top Dasher grants you is the ability to dash now anytime that you want. However, that could also be a slight negative that, remember, if you're crashing a dash zone that has enough dashers per the algorithm and you jump in there as a dash now Top Dasher, you're actually the extra dasher. You've just thinned down the offers that anybody and everybody gets. The other perk of being a top dasher is winning the coin flip during slower times. And remember, that's only during slower times. When it's rocking and rolling, you're no different than anybody else, including a guy that's got a 1% acceptance rate. At least in my market, I can schedule out 5 days ahead. I can't go the full 7 as a top dasher. Just every day, get up in the morning, go to the next day, schedule out my time. If you saw my large order catering gig video, there is no minimum acceptance rate rating needed to be a part of that program. So I will still get those orders. Combine the Doordash gigs with the roadie Walmart grocery delivery gigs that I'm going to do in the morning. I'm not putting all my eggs into one basket, going to kind of multi-app here, if you will. I hope that this strategy will work out in my favor even after the college kids come back and there's a heavy dasher presence. All right, guys and gals, that's all I've got for you today. And if somebody comes up to you with spittle flying from their lips and exclaims, but you're not making that much, you have expenses, gas, wear and tear, yeah! Tell them to go pound sand.